Visualization from the University of Toronto. Hello, Vicky.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's an honor. Vicky, would you like to introduce yourself to the viewers, please? What you're currently
Yeah,
doing, what you're up to, and what you've done as an undergrad? Yeah.
yeah, for sure. My name is Vicky. I am currently in the Masters of Biomedical Communications program at the University of Toronto. My background is in biology from McMaster University. And in the professional sense, I have a background in largely communication related roles and also editorial illustration. So a lot of my experience has been working with different teams to develop like communication plans, things like digital media strategies, social media scheduling, things like that. So kind of like bundling everything in with regards to like the visualization aspect or like the knowledge translation with meeting the audience or the users where they are. So just experience in that aspect. And yeah, I'm currently working on my master's research project, which is kind of like the year-long thesis that everyone in our program has to do. And my project is patient education related. So I'm designing a website for patients, just teaching them how radiotherapy or stereotactic body radiotherapy works and what that experience is like. And yeah.
All right, cool. It's great to hear that. So, Vicky, I'd like to know how has your journey been as a medical visualizer at the University of Toronto, and what inspired you to enroll in this course?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, yeah, my experience overall, I think has been like phenomenal. Since I started last September, I've learned so many new amazing things. I've met so many amazing people, and they've all like helped me grow and improve as like an illustrator and scientific communicator. And I'm just like really thankful to be in that position where I get to learn from so many amazing people. And I think what initially drew me to this program was, um, I guess I'm sure like this is the same for a lot of like of my peers, but just the combination of arts and science. So I knew that when I was doing my undergraduate that I had this passion for art, but being from like a science background, I wasn't 100% sure if, should I continue going one route or should I continue going to like
Yeah,
try something
absolutely.
new? Yeah, so I think when I heard about this program, which was I think sometime during my first or second year to my undergrad, I thought, wow, this is like I think combines two of my favorite things. So I think since then I've just kind of like tried to building my portfolio, my experience to kind of prepare myself in applying, and I guess here I am.
Awesome, awesome. So, can you describe a course that significantly impacted your understanding of biomedical visualization?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the one course that fits that description the most would be a course called Visualizing um, Representations of Medical Information. So this is a first year course that is taught by Michael Corrin, which is the current director of our program. And in that course, they do a really great job of explaining like more like the formal analysis aspect of different examples of medical illustration or medical media. So he goes through what are like the conventions that are typically used, what aspects of like the more like foundational principles of art, like form, perspective, shape, things like that, and how that ties together in creating like the final um, product and what that has like on the effect of the viewer and how we can kind of like achieve different like effects or messages through kind of like tweaking those like details.
Mhm.
um a big component of that course is also the illustration or not illustration the surgical illustration project, which basically we get paired with a surgeon and we have the opportunity to kind of like observe one of their surgeries and then document that process through a series of illustrations. So
Oh,
he
all
takes
right.
us
So
through
you're
that
in house
process.
and watching that surgery.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Like you're in the hospital and watching the surgery and practically experiencing it.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, I remember like my first time watching a surgery, I was like kind of just so like breathtaken by everything because like obviously the surgeon like with their experience, it's everything's like so efficient. They're kind of they're like, oh, this is like the point's like this one structure that like probably looks very like to my perspective, it doesn't look like anything significant, but it's like, oh, this is like a very important thing that we have to like keep track of. And then kind of just like going through that process and seeing how it works, it really opened my eyes as to how like I guess complicated, but at the same time like nuanced
Yeah.
surgery can be.
You mentioned in the beginning that you learned about patient education as well. So there's a lot of people in this sector that need 3D animators and illustrators. So can you explain how can a beginner, like being a beginner artist, how can I add value in that arena of surgical illustration? How can I get into that field of patient education? And why do these people need us for? Like, how are we adding value in that area?
I think that's a great question. I think 3D animation um, can apply to a lot of different aspects of healthcare related, I guess, resources. Like on one hand, you have like um, a lot of 3D medical animators doing like representing like surgeries, like in order to like train surgeons or residents. But on the other hand, for patients, 3D animation or animation in general can be utilized as like a great tool to help convey the information or like the health information that the patient would want to know to them in like a succinct and easy to digest manner. And I think that's where a lot of like the value that medical animators come in is to kind of get to know what their target audience is and kind of then going like, okay, how can I create this thing that I can help, bridge that gap between, I guess, the initial source of knowledge
Yeah,
and having the patient understand that in an effective way.
absolutely. Um, Vicky, I'd love to know, have you engaged in any research projects during your studies? And if so, what was your focus?
Yeah, for sure. Um, I can probably speak a bit about my current master's research project. So I'm working on this project in collaboration with a radiation oncologist at the University of Ottawa Hospital. And in that, my, I guess, idea for the project is to create a website that is interactive with like multimedia aids that patients and doctors can use to help educate patients about kind of like the aspects or like the stages of their radiation treatment plan. The research aspects entails a lot of like initial like literature review, kind of like diving into the kind of literature to see uh, what I guess the process entails, but also like more importantly, what are the needs of patients? So I looked at a lot of like studies about how patients, what their experiences are like during that treatment process, and also visual design literature. So looking into, okay, what types of visuals work better for certain audiences? What types of media formats? What are their pros and cons? Like kind of look into more like research backing behind those aspects to try and get so kind of like approach it from a very intentional manner in terms of like formulating the design of the overall project. And a lot of my peers for their research projects as well. They go through a research ethics kind of like process where they're going to carry out like studies with like patients or interviewing like doctors and things like that, and taking that information and like compiling that, doing some sort of analysis with the information that they collect, and then having that help inform their content, essentially, like what they're going to develop. And that's similar to what I'm also currently doing right now, which is conducting a bunch of interviews with various like radiation oncology team members, just to kind of get their perspective on how patients interact with the information that they have, and also how they seek information about things that they want to know.
Can you okay, so can you give me a walkthrough of the 3D journal cover that you made?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, yeah, what you mentioned about like the little mini figures on the head, like that was exactly the intention that I was trying to go for when I was designing that. So essentially for this project, this is a kind of like a mock editorial journal cover that is supposed to feature or kind of like showcase a particular research publication or a particular research article that was I guess recently highlighted in like any like popular news article, and kind of trying to visually portray the information in that article in kind of like a editorialized way. So like something that would be eye-catching, to be kind of like visually appealing enough to be featured on a journal cover. So the article that I chose is essentially a kind of like a new breakthrough into learning how the brain cleans itself during sleep. So at night, cerebral spinal fluid basically courses through like the vasculature throughout the brain to kind of like pick up like any metabolites, any debris that accumulated like by neurons throughout the day, to kind of clear them out of the system and kind of like restore like and maintain like brain function throughout. So I wanted to demonstrate this idea by showing like a bunch of minifigures, which is kind of like a supposed to be like a stand for like the main subject, like the person sleeping in the background, and kind of have them like literally cleaning their head. So that I guess is also like why I chose clearing the head as like the main metaphor.
Yeah.
And, yeah. So I wanted to kind of like play up that whimsical kind of fun nature that I was really gunning for. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it really the message is really conveyed with the type of illustration you've done, and it's excellent.
yeah, thank you. So I guess like all of my projects, I started off with a concept design or a sketch. So along these images, there's some examples of like the kind of pre-production work that I had. So the first one is like my sketchbook illustration, kind of like brainstorming the ideas. The second image right there is kind of like a sketch of that, but like digitally. And then we had like the colored version of that. And then I went in and kind of like did some character little designs right there to kind of prepare myself for the modeling stage. And in terms of the actual modeling, so I had to basically render two different scenes. One of them is kind of like the shot of the person's head that's sleeping. And I did that using Autodesk Maya through procedural modeling. And I guess the modeling aspect, I based it a lot of like YouTube tutorials. So kind of starting off with like a cube, but like turning that into like something recognizable as a face. And from there, I kind of like went ahead and tried to like sculpt out like kind of like a bed, essentially. I didn't put too much effort into like the bed itself because it wasn't going to be like featured in like the final thing, but I wanted to have like a pillow and like covers in there, kind of like look a bit more
very comfy.
Yeah, very comfy.
Yeah.
So I use cloth to kind of like simulate the properties of like the cloth and like the pillows. It looks like they're actually interacting.
Yeah.
And then kind of went ahead, like did the texturing and lighting and that, and wanted to create like more of like an atmospheric, moody, nighttime, like dark sort of vibe. So that's how I set up the lighting as well, to have like very contrasting, like pink and purple, like contrasting hues. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. And then this part, which is probably one of my favorite parts of this project, was just to model like the minifigures.
Yeah.
So after I got kind of like the basic um, kind of like model of the minifigure set, I began to add rigs to it in order to kind of like be able to duplicate it and then like pose it in like a bunch of different like positions, because I was not about to model 20 different of the same little guys. So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's definitely, it was like a bit of a learning curve at first, but I'm really glad that I kind of took the time to really do that and learn that process, because it definitely helped speed up the process a lot down the line. And
Yeah. Was the rigging process a little bit intimidating to you?
it was at first, but the good thing is that there's a lot of resources online that I
Yeah.
found, which definitely helped smooth the process along as well. There, you also get, I also saw like a lot of feedback from my professors during this time. So there's definitely a lot of resources out there if you're struggling in like while you're working on an assignment. And I guess moving on to like the texturing part, that's just like adding the colors. These are just kind of like some examples of that. And one of my favorite parts was to kind of like put everything together and like orient the little guys around the brain model.
You love
And
them.
yeah, so essentially I wanted to render the brain to look like it had like a kind of a glowing effect, to kind of like maximize that like whimsical kind of like fantasy um uh that sort of like vibe throughout. So I visualize it so it's kind of like has like a transmission effect on it, so that it can like be kind of see-through. And then there's also a model of like the cerebellum that I placed inside of the brain, and I had that set as like a mesh light, so that when it's kind of like glowing, you can see the cerebellum through the brain, since it's like semi-transparent.
Yeah,
And
the
yeah.
transmissive material.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's looking quite nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's for some reason the rendering took so long. I wasn't sure what the reason was, but the output I was pretty happy with. Um, and
Yeah, it does. It does. It really depends on, the settings of your renders and obviously the number of polygons included in the render as well.
oh yeah, there were a lot of polygons in there. I'll just say that.
Definitely.
Hmm. And yeah, and then the final step is compositing and like post-production. So this is just putting everything together that I worked so hard to like render out in the first place.
Mhm.
And I rendered out the two scenes separately, so I can like control the different lighting environments between them like in a more like precise way. So here you can just see some of like the process of like how I went through and did like the different alterations and like tweaks to kind of get it to where it was finally. So first of all, I use Photoshop, like the camera raw filter feature, to kind of adjust like the lighting, the saturation, like the coloring of how it appears. And
Yeah.
then I went in and I did use Procreate mostly for this aspect, to kind of draw in some more like shadows to kind of like blend the two images together more seamlessly.
Mhm.
And I added in like a little spotlight, like the pink ray of light, to kind of like highlight one of like the little mini figures, to kind of provide a bit more emphasis on it. And like my intention was that like when you're viewing this on a cover, that kind of like line would help guide the viewer's eye towards like the central image,
Mhm.
which was like the brain. And overall, I think it's just like after I put this together, it's just a matter of like putting on the graphic design elements, and yeah, that's essentially it. I wanted to make it more like pop out, so I like masked some areas where like the little mini figures were like sticking out. But yeah, that's essentially how it went. It was a really fun process. There was a lot of like kind of like uh highs and lows of like trying to get like the
Yeah,
modeling
a lot
software
of back
to
and
work.
forth. Yeah, I get
Yeah.
it. I understand, but it looks awesome. It looks amazing, and I love how you broke it down and you've mentioned everything in the portfolio. It looks amazing. I can actually go through and go back and how you like from scratch, how you started from scratch. Like it's awesome, amazing.
Thank
I mean,
you.
yeah, yeah. How does critique and feedback from peers and instructors influence your work at the university?
Yeah, absolutely. I think throughout, I'm pretty sure like the majority of the projects that we have, feedback from like either our peers or our professors is like integrated throughout the workflow so that you're always iterating, you're always like kind of doing tweaks here and there to kind of like improve um, both your kind of like illustration or animation skills and just, I guess, getting a more wider perspective of how different people perceive the things that you're working on. So, for example, like with the 3D editorial cover that I was just mentioning, we had like a couple peer review sessions where we would kind of like post up our work and like everyone kind of like go around and like leave little comments here and there. And that was for me, like I found that to be really helpful, and I integrated like actually a lot of like the feedback that I got into my final illustration. And I think overall, I found the whole peer review process to be very valuable because sometimes, like, when I'm kind of so stuck in, like, I'm so like narrowed in on like a piece of work that I'm doing, it's so easy to get like tunnel vision.
Yeah,
And I think just having like a fresh set of eyes to like look at some things, it really helps, you know, like ease some of that like pressure off.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's very important to have someone to critique because when you are actually doing creating a piece of art, you're so into it that you cannot see which part of it is not looking good. So yeah, I think a feedback from someone expert in that field is quite valuable. So okay, what career paths are you considering post graduation, and how has the program prepared you for them?
I think that's a very good question. I feel like I'm still trying to figure out. Um, I think I guess the first thing that comes to mind is probably working something um, like a tech or um, more like a studio kind of environment where I'm working with like a close team and we're working on like different projects with clients to deliver. Honestly, I'm open to like any type of like work at this point. I guess I think I'm still in like the exploration stage.
Yeah,
So I guess I'm leaving my options pretty open. But with my current like thesis project, I think that that's really helped me open my eyes to like what kind of like workflow that I'm interested in, but also like what types of media that I'm interested in working in.
yeah,
So things like UX or UI design, I found that that is probably going to be a very big component of my project. So I thought that might be something that I would be really interested in going into. And I know for a lot of my peers as well, like their master's research project is essentially like kind of like a stepping stone for them to get into like the particular career or job that they want. So I think yeah, that's probably like one major way that like this program is like helping prepare
ab-
us.
absolutely. So how would you describe the current demand for biomedical communicators in various sectors?
Um, I think that's a great question. I think right now, even just like across like all industries, we're seeing a lot of shifts in terms of like uh trends or hiring aspects. I think the demand for biomedical communicators will always exist, but it might go through like kind of ebbs and flows throughout like different decades. So like I guess some years there might be like a slightly more demand, but like other years there might be like slightly less, and that kind of like is dependent on the state of um, the
It's not,
industry itself
yeah,
as well.
and the
Um,
economy as well, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think
Because
uh,
I feel like a lot of biomedical communicators are required in the field of research. So
yes,
unless the economy is going great and everything is going well, the research will still be happening.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that also depends on like funding
yeah,
availability.
yeah.
So
Funding
that's
happens obviously when the economy is going well. Yeah, so it's directly proportional.
yeah. But I'm not sure about like the current state of the market right now. Honestly, I think I'm probably going to leave that until like probably after I graduate to kind of like do a bit more of like an analysis on. But overall, I think what's good about biomedical communicators that like their skill sets are very diverse in the sense that you can probably like work in a whole bunch of different industries or a whole bunch of different sectors.
Absolutely.
Um,
How important is networking in this field, and what opportunities has the program provided you in this regard?
I think, in my personal opinion, networking is probably one of the most important aspects of this um, kind of field, which is um, that a lot of the times researchers who might be in need of biomedical biomedical communication work might not know that this field exists in general. So I think through networking, that kind of like helps you kind of reach certain individuals or reach certain um, people who might know other people who could like promote your work or like promote sort of like put like a good word in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, kind of like
I
trying to
LinkedIn does
people
really
who
help.
yes, yeah, that's also another big thing, like LinkedIn.
Yeah, LinkedIn does really help because all of the big giants, like, you can directly access those people and direct message them. Yeah. So, have you explored freelance work during your studies? And if so, how did you find clients and projects?
I haven't explored freelance in the professional sense, um, but I have um, sort of like looked into kind of like the beginning stages of like preparing for freelance. So I've started like reaching out to past like research individuals that I knew from my undergrad, and kind of like talking to them and like kind of pitching, hey, like here's some of the things that I can do. If you're doing any research that like you might need any of these things, like please let me know. Kind of just like branching out and just getting my name out there initially, just kind of building that foundation. There are a lot of opportunities that get passed along to us through um, different avenues. Like, for example, our amazing program administrator, shout out to Maeve, she always passes along like sometimes companies contact her and like say like, hey, there's like this job posting about blah blah blah. If any of you guys are interested, here's like the link, things like that. So there's always plenty of opportunity out there.
Yeah, what was the name that you mentioned?
Sorry.
What was the name that you mentioned?
Oh, Maeve, she is our program administrator, and she's
Oh,
amazing.
what do you think? How much can a fresh grad earn in Canada being a biomedical visualizer?
From some of the research that I've done, an entry position role typically makes, I want to say, around $62,000 Canadian per year. A lot of the roles that I've seen, I guess, like in terms of like hourly wage, that's probably about like $26 to $29 per hour. I guess at least like that's the average that I've seen. Of course, it definitely ranges a lot depending on like what the company that you're working for. If it's more like a research institution, they might be a bit more limited in resources and funding, but there could be a range, but I would say that's probably the average that I found.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you know about what's the most lucrative genre in the field of medical visualization?
I want to say, I'm not sure about lucrative, but one kind of like facet of like biomedical visualization that not a lot of people I find know about is like medical legal illustration, which is, I guess, like as like the name suggests, you're doing medical illustration for legal services. So for example, if there's like a case that is, I guess, related to like an injury lawsuit or things like that, you would need like medical illustrators to kind of design like the visual assets to support like the plaintiff's case or defendant's case that they're trying to build.
You mean litigation?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So my final question to you, what guidance would you offer to someone considering a career in biomedical communications?
I think I would say if you're considering like a career in biomedical communications,
how do they just like start out, get into the pool?
I think a good way to start would be to, I guess, just work on projects. It doesn't have to be big projects, but like just try and like do any like examples of like medical illustration or biomedical visualization pieces. And I think by kind of doing that and like honing your artistic and also like your visual communication skills through kind of like going through more and more examples, I think that's a great way to start getting familiar with the process. And I would say don't be afraid of not getting things right the first time. It is a learning process that is very iterative, and it's in progress. I have to tell myself this all the time, but progress isn't linear. So I think just the more you work at it, the better you get. And I think try and like build a portfolio that would reflect your, I guess, your best skills and like your best pieces, I think would be a great way to start. And yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, Vicky, for sharing your insights with us. It was such a valuable conversation to have with you. And thank you for giving us your time from the busy schedule. Obviously, you're a student, so I know how busy it is. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, I'll see you then.
See ya.